Hello, everyone, and greetings from Vermont. My name is Savannah Sly, and I'm the founder and co-director of New Moon Network, which is a national nonprofit dedicated to advancing the rights and welfare for people in the sex trade. We do this through capacity building programming, such as Spokes Hub, as well as philanthropic education and funding. As an organization led by the communities it serves, we at New Moon know that people with lived experience in the sex trade are experts capable of shaping the policies and aspects of culture that affect sex workers and survivors of sex trafficking. For this reason, we launched Spokes Hub in collaboration with our allies at Woodhull Freedom Foundation to provide opportunities for learning, engagement, and action for sex worker and survivor advocates. Graduates, we are immensely proud of you. The world is in vital need of everything that you have to share in this moment. And we know that you're going to do amazing things out in the world. We look forward to staying in touch with you as your colleagues, in camaraderie with you, and also supporting your advocacy work through the Spokes Hub Financial Awards Pool. We're incredibly proud of you, and we hope that you're proud of yourselves, and congratulations.
Hi everyone, my name is Delphine. I am the head of activism and community engagement at LaShaw, the International Sexual Health and Wellness Research Institute. And I'm so happy to be here on behalf of LaShaw to support New Moon Network and the Spokes Hub initiative. Now at LaShaw, what we're trying to do is essentially improve the sexual health and well-being of people worldwide, but we also work to improve the sexual health and well-being of sex workers in particular. We do this through numerous ways. Mainly, we advance sex research. We also develop initiatives that are going to improve the well-being of sex workers and people in adult industries. And we're also trying to positively change public opinion because we know that stigma plays such a huge role in the issues faced by sex workers. Now, one of our initiatives that we are super proud that we completed this year is the Community Advisory Board. So we put together a Community Advisory Board of CAM models who are advising us on some of the most pressing issues that they face in their profession. So we use this advice to develop initiatives that are going to tailor their needs and target those issues. And the Community Advisory Board also advises us on ongoing projects so we can really be sure that the projects we're doing are centering sex worker perspectives and experiences. Now, if you're interested in that, I welcome you to go to our website, lashaw.com. You can also find a lot of articles on there written in a very accessible way about sexual health, sexual wellness, but many of them are actually about sex work and sex workers, so that might be of interest to you. We're also on X, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And so lastly, I just want to take a moment to thank New Moon Network for building such supportive and empowering environments for sex workers. We need more of that in this world. And on behalf of LaShaw, I just want to congratulate you all on your achievements and wish you a happy graduation. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Noah, though I've also gone by Femi Babylon, Moses Moon, and Thought Scholar, which is the name you'll see on the screen, on social media and journals and other publications. I've been a co-coordinator with Spokes Hub for about 3 years now, and I currently blog on Substack at thoughtscholar.substack.com.
Hey there, my name is Jaylee Oshiro. Spokes Hub is a free online academy for people with lived experience in the sex trades, and I'm here to talk to you about it. We are a peer sharing space focused on supporting each other as we develop our voice and authority as advocates. Some of us are sex workers, some of us are survivors. And as you'll hear today, some of us have complex experiences as both. We don't like to define your experiences for you. We're just here to support you along your journey and give you some community, share our knowledge with each other. And personally, my favorite part of the program is to get you paid. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to that. Anyone who has lived experience in the sex trade can take a class at Spokes Hub. You do not have to enroll to be a part of the program. These are drop-in classes via Zoom, and we try to have at least 4 classes each month on a wide range of topics. Participants of Spokes Hub are encouraged to deepen their understanding of complex issues through peer learning and research, and to expand their advocacy skills through writing and public speaking. It could be a deep dive discussion after a film screening about the sex industry, or a subject matter expert teaching a practical skill for public education work or advocacy. And by the way, that subject matter expert could be you. We encourage anyone with lived experience in the sex trade to teach a Spokes Hub class. You could teach it solo or with a partner. $250 for one presenter, $150 each for two presenters. Check out Woodhull's website for a list of previous classes or a form to submit a class to teach. And just remember that this is an educational advocacy academy. We don't teach people how to do sex work or how to build their sex work business. Part of the purpose of Spokes Hub is to recognize the valuable contributions of advocates with lived experience in the sex trade. And the graduates whose presentations you are about to witness will now have access to a financial awards pool that offers stipends of up to $250 for public education or advocacy work they conduct that is otherwise unpaid. To date, the awards pool has distributed just over $33,200 to graduates across the engaged in public education and advocacy work. And for a couple of years old program, that is not nothing. In order to ensure that Spokes Hub is a high quality and relevant program to its participants, we have intentionally grown the program slowly but steadily. We like to keep these cohorts more on the small side so we can make sure to hear what people have to say during classes. We all have something to learn and we all have something to teach. That's our motto at Spokes Hub. We try to graduate between 5 and 10 folks twice a year, but this cohort is our 6th and our largest to date. We have 12 graduates today, and truly, this is the most diverse cohort in every possible way, from their demographics to their presentation medium and to their content. We have folks that are not only transgender, non-binary, but like myself, are also intersex, living with disabilities, and are both survivors and sex workers. From poetry to photography to music to video, some have lived experience as folks who are formerly incarcerated, HIV positive, or had diverse experiences in the types of sex work they did. We also have intergenerational activism, which is something I am personally super passionate about. We are very honored today to explore their subject matters as they educate us with their knowledge and their vulnerability. Please welcome the Spokes Hub Summer 2025 graduating class and their original final presentations.
First up, we have Ma, a queer Southern Taiwanese American writer whose work spans advocacy, painting, and songwriting. She's performed everywhere from strip clubs to galleries and animal shelters, and writes about erotic labor and more on her Substack, Gentle Gentle.
Hello, I'm Moth, and I'm going to open by talking about why I'm here. Choosing to be a visible advocate is one of the ways I express my love for this community and for life. As a laborer in this industry and as a woman in this country, I've spent years choosing to share my talent, care, and beauty for the entertainment and pleasure of customers who were mostly cis men, who needed this labor, as did I. At this point in my life, I'm interested in sharing my talent for the entertainment, pleasure, and advocacy of the communities I belong to, erotic laborers, queers, and children of the diaspora. I'm motivated to work in this space because I believe in the power of storytelling to foster connection and understanding. Through my art, one of my hopes is to uplift others in this community through visibility of our shared humanity, to continue holding a vision of a country and a world that is free from state-sanctioned violence and the horrors of the carceral system, all while speaking honestly about the realities of the present moment and the need for full decriminalization. I'm going to share a couple of my mediums of how I express myself through art, the first of which is a section of an essay that you can find more of on my Substack, Gentle Gentle. At 6:06 on Friday, your smiling face invades the Signal group chat. It's a screenshot of an Instagram story circulating the sex worker channels, a collage of warnings digitally pasted amongst details of your ID. There's a crop of your LinkedIn profile matching where you told me you worked. Working with police to close down locations, will screen, will come and have a session, but is working with police. And other confirmations of these reviews. I think about the conversation we had last spring, your solid 50-ish-year-old body, relaxed in a crispy white button-down shirt, leaning against the resined wooden bar in the club. You're telling me that this, stripping, is exactly what you'd be doing if you were me, in my position, a young woman, an artist in New York. An unsatisfying response to a broken rule. I've confessed a desire to transition to something else for work while in costume. Luckily, my emotional reactivity in the moment of his mansplanation makes me aware of my error, and I become Anna Lee again, smiling and laughing, instead of Moth, who, lately is perpetually edging rage on the brink of administering a lecture, instigating confrontation, collapsing in a heap, or crying at any public-facing moment. Her misery is only lucrative when it leads to ruthlessness, and everyone is too tired for that right now. Later, when I am carried through the underground tunnels of New York, back to whatever home I've made for myself on this work trip, I'll slip back into my body, reflecting and unburdening my mind of the psychic filaments, gendered resentments playing out and swirling through the shadows of the underworld that was once my temple. I'll wonder what the underworld would be without shadows and mirrors. The first time you saw me, I was twirling around a pole, feeling loose and invincible. Not on the main stage, but on the pedestal, installed on the floor next to the bar. Over 5 years in, and I can sense a customer's gaze with my back turned and from the opposite side of a room, while having a full-blown conversation. A talent or coping mechanism I've honed my entire life, and that now, with years of sex work under my belt, transcends civilian understanding. So it was easy to feel yours, even with your body turned away from me, eyes straight ahead, resting on the TV screen above liquor bottles. Easy to feel the loose blanket of your desire giving you away, the scent of hunger. The second time, I was walking a customer off the floor to VIP, a critical moment in the sales funnel, about to close and secure the funds for the sparkly new luxury sublet in Clinton Hill I rented for the week in order to work. As I leave, one of the hosts tracks me down and hands me a slippery, starched $100 bill. It's from you. I interpret the gesture as a flex of authority, a sign of someone willing to play the long game, a potential whale. And if you want to read the rest of that, you can go to the Substack. And this is a song that I recently wrote in honor of my siblings in this work. When I'm ready, you'll know. When I'm ready, you'll know. If you read my lips, when you touch me like this, when I'm ready, you'll know. When the river's high, when the river's low, when you can't feel time, when the anchor floats, my love is a boat. I'm God-filled and breathless, giving body, giving life, giving comfort to the weary through the fight. My sisters are singing, there's a candle burning bright, keeping watch through the night. Let the evil ride, let the evil ride. I am dust in the wind. I'm a river that bends. Let the evil ride. I'm God, filled and breathless, giving body, giving life, giving comfort to the weary in the fight. Holy Spirit, fruit in the body of you. May you walk in the blood of your holy truth. Holy Spirit, fruit. Okay, where you can find me. If you want to connect more about this work or just see what I'm up to, I'm on Substack as Gentle, and my music is on all the streaming platforms under Moth. And I think that's it. Thank you.
That was wonderful, Moth. I'm Jose Rico, and I've been so grateful to co-coordinate Spokes Hub for the last 2 years. When I'm not alongside all these incredible advocates online, I'm doing library work, tending to my grief garden, and relaxing with my pets. I'm also so grateful to introduce our next graduate, Renee Faust, a former child actress who entered the adult industry in 2020. Faust founded the Coalition of American Sex Workers in 2024 and provides sex worker affirming care through Los Angeles Sex Therapy.
Hi, my name is Renee, and this is my Spokes Hub final presentation. I am a sex worker advocate, the founder of the Coalition of American Sex Workers, and a Wisconsinite. Additionally, I've been working in mental health since 2022 with the goal of providing affirming care to the sex work community. I currently work out of Los Angeles Sex Therapy in California, where I provide pro bono and sliding scale care to members of the community. I'm also a member of the Pineapple Support Care Network. So before moving to Milwaukee, I spent 20 or so years in LA, where I worked with orgs like Pineapple Support, Swap LA, Sunday Fair. I had originally hoped to connect with an established org here in Wisconsin, but soon I learned that unlike Chicago or Minneapolis, which have very well established and thriving organizations, Wisconsin represented something of a desert when it came to sex worker focused orgs. So, in the hopes of changing this, the Coalition of American Sex Workers was born. We started small, distributing Narcan and harm reduction supplies to house moms and bathroom attendants at local strip clubs, and hosting Christmas card drives and fundraisers for Crystal Kaiser, a young woman who survived child sex trafficking, only to receive an 11-year sentence for defending her life against the man responsible for trafficking her. While CASW remains focused on centering the needs of those engaged in consensual sex work, Crystal's story is a testament to the many systemic failures that we see from a racist judicial system, the current approach to anti-trafficking, and ultimately the hypocrisy of politicians and orgs that often care very little about the people that they say they want to serve. At the suggestion of Crystal's legal team, CASW and Crystal collaborated on writing a petition in support of her upcoming appeal. So if you'd like to read more about her case or sign the petition, you can screenshot the QR code that is pictured. This brings us to CASW's latest initiative in support of upcoming decrim legislation here in the state of Wisconsin. Though most of our viewers are likely aware, Wisconsin's a very purple state. It doesn't mean all hope is lost. This spring, dark woke oligarch Elon Musk sank $25 million into Supreme Court conservative candidate Brad Schimmel, only to face a resounding and decisive loss. Wisconsin could not make it more clear. They didn't want anything to do with the Musk agenda. While there's a good amount of daylight between the stigma of being associated with Elon Musk and the stigma faced by sex workers, we have a few amazing allies in the fight. Milwaukee has a long history of socialist leadership and is currently home to a strong socialist caucus, including Senator Chris Larson and 4 sitting state reps. Now, I first met Representative Ryan Clancy while canvassing for his re-election campaign. Despite attack ads framing his vocal support for sex workers as out of touch, he won re-election by 10 points. Late last year, Clancy approached me in the hopes of getting more guidance and a few new contacts to help him develop decrim legislation here in the state. We've been hard at work ever since. While Representative Clancy is sponsoring this bill, Both CASW and the forthcoming bill have both received support from all sitting members of Milwaukee's Socialist Caucus, and we feel confident that they will show continued support when the bill is introduced. Though there are many forms of sex work to which the following doesn't apply, as a quick background, there are 4 widely recognized models of sex work criminalization that impact the work of full-service workers. The first being criminalization, the model currently practiced in the majority of the U.S. The second is legalization, a model where full-service sex workers are not criminalized as long as they work within a very stringent framework and keep up with their licenses. The third is the Nordic model, which is often referred to as the in-demand model or the equality model. This approach still criminalizes the purchase of sex, which frequently leads to more dangerous working conditions for sex workers. Finally, we have decrim, in which consenting adult workers and their clients do not face the fear of arrest for buying or selling sex. Though challenges such as the conflation of sex work and sex trafficking still pose a threat to the passage of the bill, sex workers have the facts on their side. Organizations like the World Health Organization, the ACLU, the Human Rights Campaign, and the UN AIDS Foundation support the decriminalization of sex work, recognizing the research that supports its necessity. So what are the objectives of this bill? Well, we want to end the arrest of adults engaged in consensual sex work. We want to end the arrest of minors for prostitution, which is something that still happens in our state. We'll talk about that more in a bit. We want to end police sting operations and permitted sexual contact between sex workers and undercover cops. We also want to create a sex workers' Bill of Rights and create a framework for safe reporting. Additionally, we've reached out to local leaders to include additional measures aimed at protecting the most marginalized identities represented in our community. We want to add additional protections for queer and trans members, as well as unhoused youth who often find themselves exploited due to their inability to access local resources, due to mandated reporting structures that are currently practiced within our state. To underscore this hypocrisy, the state of Wisconsin regularly arrests minors for the crime of prostitution, doing so without offering exploited kids the resources that they're entitled to. Additionally, these arrests aren't recorded as incidents of trafficking, as cops are required to do. 24 agencies in 16 counties reported arrests of juveniles for prostitution between the years of 2014 and 2018. These same districts reported 0 incidents of human trafficking within the same time frame of the survey. So why now? Well, Project 2025 makes it very clear how conservatives feel about sex workers, and we already know their playbook. Between age verification laws, which are a thinly veiled attempt to shut down any sort of site that hosts adult content, we also have new bills being introduced, like Oklahoma's SB 593, or IOTA, which seeks to target adult content on a federal level by changing the definition of obscenity. In 2018, the sex work community reckoned with FOSTA SESTA, the Allow States and Victims to Fight Online Sex Trafficking Act and Stop Enabling Sex Traffickers Act, targeted online platforms used by sex workers to find and screen clients. If censorship laws are allowed to pass federally, we're likely to see even greater fallout than before. That's because online creators and full-service sex workers will still have bills that come due, whether or not they have the platforms that they've made their livelihoods through. Despite the irreparable damage caused by the passing of FOSTA SESTA, the Government Accountability Office reported that only 1 civil case sought damages under FOSTA, and that case was dismissed. Speaking as the Deputy Director of St. James Infirmary, Pike Long said of FOSTA SESTA that estimates of street-based sex work tripled nearly overnight as a result of FOSTA SESTA. The likelihood that further online censorship results in less safety for sex workers is a given, and we're likely to see workers forced into riskier working conditions out of necessity. Decrim means greater safety for sex workers today and sex workers navigating the challenges of tomorrow. It makes trafficking victims safer. It creates a safe means of seeking help without fear of arrest. You can be pro-sex worker and anti-trafficking. In fact, I strongly encourage it. Our needs and our liberation are very much intertwined. If you'd like to support our efforts, we could use all the help we can get. You can check out our site, casw304.org, or shoot us an email at casw304@proton.me to learn more. We're looking for more coalition members, as well as folks like other Spokes Hub grads who are willing to help us educate lawmakers ahead of a vote. Again, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for making Spokes Hub possible. This is such an important organization in the fight ahead. Solidarity forever, and thank you, Spokes Hub.
Thank you, Renee. Next is Huck Reyes. Huck, whose pronouns are they and he, has been involved with Spokes Hub as a student and presenter since 2023. Reyes also works with the Sex Worker Giving Circle and BIPOC Sex Worker Writer Space. He is a sex worker, photographer, and writer based in Atlanta, Georgia.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Huck Reyes. My pronouns are they, he. And for my project, I have a brief little presentation about how to create a 4-slide pitch deck for an artistic project. And this would be helpful for anyone who's an artist and who's using their art to who's mixing their art and advocacy work together. Artivism is often a term used. So anyhow, welcome to Art and Advocacy, how to make a 4-slide pitch deck. So first of all, what is a pitch deck? They're often used in business and in real estate, in film. It's a concise visual presentation, basically used to propose or pitch your idea or project to potential investors, potential collaborators, and other community partners who you are seeking to work with. So that's conceptually what a pitch deck is and what it's used for. Today, I'll be proposing an art event with this 4-slide pitch deck. So the key elements for a pitch deck that's proposing an artistic project are visual. You want to share your vision. You're going to want to present images or any other visual representations that really show the mood, the aesthetic, the colors, the textures, the feeling of what you're proposing. So particularly with visual art projects, this should be pretty like fun to craft that aspect of it. And it should be kind of straightforward too, because you're really just showing your audience what you're talking about and how it's going to look. So I'll be doing that in slide 1. Slide 2 is going to be an introduction to the team. So in any pitch deck, regardless of the number of slides, you want to say who you are and who you're working with. Who are the community members, collaborators, in this case, artists and other event production team members who are already on board? And what are their talents? Maybe some of their known works, some of the resources they possess. And feel free to brag. This is where you really want to show that the team you're working with is capable, competent, ready to go, and they're bright and motivated and committed. So that's going to be my slide 2. And you can put these in any order. This is just the order I randomly chose that sort of made sense for 4 slides. Third slide, and also a key element, is going to be the market research or market trends. So what is some background information about your target audience? What communities will both be impacted and involved with this event? And what are some successful similar projects that you can compare this to? In this example that I'll be showing you, I'll be comparing this event to other art shows and art events. Lastly, just a brief statement. In this introduction, I chose to say artist statement, but if you're taking on a curator role, which I did in the example, I have a curator statement. Sometimes you'll see a director's statement or someone in another role giving a brief kind of explanation of what you're doing and why. So you'll just want to give viewers a little bit more context and understanding of your project. What does it mean to you, and what can others understand or gain or like from showing up or investing? Just a brief statement about the general background and motivations. Okay, cool. So that's what a pitch deck is. And with that, we're going to go into the 4-slide pitch deck. And I designed this to be pretty accessible if you are kind of a last-minute planner, just to show that you can, or for other ADHD warriors, just to show that you can put something together that's concise and in 4 slides. All right, sex work and surrealism. This is the big title of the event I'm proposing. And then I have a subtitle, diving into the irrational, unlocking the subconscious, and journeying into dreams. And so this is where my visual representations come in. I've collaged some photos. I'm trying to give a feel of like the mood and the colors and the general vibe of what you might find at the Sex Work and Surrealism art event. Join us for an evening of exploration into the absurdities and super realities of sex workers. This multidisciplinary and immersive art event will tickle, awe, and confound visitors, inviting them to wink back at the taboo. So really want to make it titillating, right? I'm trying to draw people in and I'm giving them a good idea visually of what they can imagine. So here's my team introduction. This is an example. So I just called my team famous surrealists. So I have myself, and I noted that I'm the point of contact. I've given my artist titles and kind of boasted a little bit about my capabilities for networking. I have a lot of deep networks across the US, so feel free to mention anything that really shows off what your team members can offer. These are all fake names, but I wanted to include members of my team that would show the different roles and that, this project already has people involved that cover a lot of different aspects of producing an event like this. So I've included Bo Nash, who's an infamous hospitality and entertainment impresario, well connected with venue owners and headlining performers. I've got Miss Vita Bohem, who is a headlining performer, and she's had 6 sold-out shows in the past year. Lastly, I've listed Pretty Boy Installations, who are a reliable event logistics and installation team who also have very unique and interactive designs and interiors. So I'm just highlighting some of the best parts of the team and community members that are already on board. And that's a drawing of Salvador Dali, who's a painter who does or did surrealist paintings. All right, here's a market research example slide. So I just talk about what the communities are that are going to be impacted and involved, and then I've compared it to some different shows. This event will merge the art community and sex worker community, as well as engage advocates, organizers, and allies. The event is intended to widen the avenues of opportunity for sex worker artists within the broader arts community. Interested parties include advocacy groups for sex workers, arts foundations, art collectors, event promoters, art business entrepreneurs, students, cultural workers, and activists. So I'm really trying to showcase that this will be a palatable and interesting event to a lot of different people and a lot of different groups. I've got some comparisons. The Chocolate and Art Show, which is a touring art show that has live art, the Poetry Brothel, and these are actually real. I didn't make these ones up. The Poetry Brothel, which takes booking requests. And you can, ask them to do certain themes. So that's something that I kind of wanted to compare to because there are live actors, there's art, it's sexy themed, and you can, request them to come to your town, which is something that I would like to do with this. And then lastly, the Yoko Ono Dream Together exhibit. It's touring, it's multidisciplinary, it has a focus on activism, and it's interactive. So these are all elements of that similar events also included. And I just want to give people an idea of names that are already out there, productions and events, concepts that are already out there that they'll be able to kind of imagine this event compared to. So if folks don't really know, like, oh, what is this gonna look and how is this gonna go, they can think of these things, and these other events have online presence as well, so they can go look those up. All right, this is the last slide, slide number 4. I have a brief curator statement because that is the role that I would be taking. And it's just kind of a little more, it might sound a little artsy fartsy, but a curator statement or an artist statement, sometimes a director's statement, it's just a message from the person in that role that kind of explains and tells a story of like why they wanted to do this, why it's important to them, and like a broader context. This statement reads, in an industry fueled by marketable aesthetics, how does the lens of surrealist and anti-graphic art reshape how we see ourselves as sex workers and how others see our industry? Sex work and surrealism aims to morph our understanding of the realities of sex work, de-escalate tensions around taboo and extractive themes, and welcome civilian visitors into our world of absurdity. Sex workers are the vanguard of the radical imagination, and we continue to push the limits of liberatory possibilities by existing throughout the irrational, the subconscious, and the dreamscape. So that's a little bit more background, a little bit about why I, the curator, Huck Reyes, some of the ideas that gave birth to my proposal. And then I've got my contact, of course, and that's it. So in summary, you're going to want to have visual representations. You're going to want to have a description of your team members that are on board, some of the market trends and background market information. Who are the communities and who is this? Who are you going to be able to market this to? What communities and groups are going to be interested in this? And then lastly, the curator's or artist statement, giving a little more context and telling a story about how this came to be. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Huck. Our next graduate is DeMarco. As an intersex male, DeMarco has dedicated his life to championing the rights and well-being of marginalized communities. He is the passionate founder and executive director of Advocates of the South, Inc., and his experience in the behavioral health field combines his professional expertise with his activist heart. DeMarco has formerly been a chapter leader for Black Lives Matter in San Francisco and the coordinator for Transforming Organization in Atlanta, one of the oldest transmasculine groups around. Notably, DeMarco is the first intersex male to be held in Atlanta's jail in the regular male population, a testament to his resilience and courage in the face of adversity.
Hey again. So here's a poem for you all. It's called My Body, My Rights. Okay, so first I want to talk about my body, my rights. The power of my voice in advocacy and activism. So for much of my life, I have felt the weight of silence, staying quiet to survive, just to fit in. Yet inside there was always a fire, a need to speak, to push back against the forces that sought to oppress me. My Body, My Rights is more than a poem. It is my testimony, my declaration that my voice matters in the fight for justice. Loving my body in a world that defines perfect for me. The world has tried to tell me what my body should be, how it should look, how it should exist, how even it should conform. But I reject those limitations. As an intersex, Black male, or trans experience, my body is mine to honor, to love, to exist free without apology. My identity is not something to be erased or reshaped to fit into someone else's definition of what it is that society feels to be normal. The right to work, the right to exist. Sex work is work. It is labor, and it is a choice that should be respected. The criminalization and stigma surrounding sex work deny freedom over bodies, livelihoods. Advocacy work for sex workers' rights is deeply tied to body liberation. The right to use, control, and define one's body on one's own terms. Justice demands that sex work be protected, not prosecuted, and that voices be heard in decisions about labor, safety, and just basic human rights. Personal truth as a collective of strength, my experiences are my own, yet they are not isolated. Many of who have been justice impacted understand the pressure to conform, the fear of speaking out, the pain of suppression by sharing my truth. I am lending strength to those who feel unheard, showing that our stories are intertwined in a larger struggle for dignity, freedom, and real justice. Storytelling as Resistance. Movement for justice thrives on voices. Our stories expose oppression and demand change. My poem is an act of resistance. It challenges the silence imposed upon marginalized communities and urges others to reclaim their voices, to stand in their truth, despite the forces that seek us to be quiet. Lived experience and policy change. Advocacy does not exist in a vacuum. It needs personal testimonials to drive systematic reform. My story is a reflection of a larger fight for human rights, criminal justice reform, healthcare equality, and social liberation. Justice impact individuals, sex workers, and marginalized communities are often left voiceless in policy decisions, but our lived experiences carry the power to reshape laws, dismantle harmful systems, and build a better world. For from survival to activism, finding my voice has not only liberated, but it has also become a call for action for others. Speaking up, sharing, standing firm on my rights is not just a personal healing, it is activism. Through my body, my rights, I hope to inspire others to embrace their voices, to refuse silence, and to turn their survival into advocacy. And may that door to advocacy allow each person to not just survive, but to live.
My body, my rights. My body, a temple, a story untold, a tapestry woven with courage and bold. Each scar, each curve, a map of my fight, claiming my truth, my body, my right. They tried to define me to shape who I am, but I rise unbroken, a lion's heart, grand. This skin, this flesh, a revolutionary ignites, a sanctuary of freedom, my suffering rights. I stand unapologetic, my essence is mine. My body a beacon, resilient, divine. Let the world take notice and hear my refrain, my rights, my body, forever reclaimed.
Thank you to Margot. Next is Jessie Lee. Jessie Lee is a teacher, dancer, and is learning to be an effective advocate. They've lived all over the US and are glad to be getting involved in advocacy at the local and state level where they live now. Sex Work is Work, Toward a Framework for Easing Potential Allies into Advocacy, by Jessie Lee, read by Jose Rico. In order to shift cultural and policy discourse about sex work and sex workers, we have to both engage those folks who are already on our side and find ways to persuade others to support our goals. Giving people easy on-ramps to allyship can increase our organizing power. Different points of entry will work for different people. Some will respond to storytelling and media that expand their understanding, to academic research that shows how sex work is work, to labor theory and organizing, to understanding the legal, economic, and policy frameworks that shape how sex work is treated in the world, to the idea that sex workers come to their work through a variety of circumstances, meaning that one can do this by choice and desire rather than only desperation and force. We cannot go deeply into all of these possible points of entry today, so this presentation is going to highlight some easy information and resources to share with potential allies. Civilians may think that they've seen something that told them everything that they needed to know, that one episode of Law and Order or CSI, films like Anora or Pretty Women. However, few television shows and movies consider sex work from the perspective of the worker. Movies like Tangerine, focusing on two Black trans sex workers, and Good Luck to You, Leo Grande, focus on male sex worker and the woman who hires him, serve to humanize people who provide and receive sex work. They are no substitute for deeper learning, but they can be good entry points to the conversation. Books and podcasts by sex workers, so many podcasts, are easier to find than good video programming. Recommending these to potential allies is an easy way to begin a discussion with people who might otherwise be ignorant or misinformed, and can even be the subject of book clubs or discussion circles where community development of advocacy is desired. Jiz Lee's 2015 book, Coming Out Like a Porn Star, includes over 50 stories from a diverse group of performer authors who address being known by the work they do. They are definitely difficult stories in the collection, but many of them address how the performers' families, friends, and coworkers were able to understand and support the sex workers in their lives. Alan Silver's book, Man of Use, explains both the story of how he came into sex work of many kinds, including studio porn, sexuality education, and sacred intimacy, in a way that shows his agency as a consenting adult, as well as a persuasive understanding of why his work is beneficial for the people he works with. Academic researchers, including Monique Huysman, Alberto Cifuentes Jr., Adam Roberts-Smith, Rosa Cho, and Meredith Ralston, address sex work from a variety of perspectives: sociology, performance, labor, ethics, and legal frameworks. Huysman, Cifuentes, and Cho all consider sex work from sociological policy and power frameworks. This is perhaps the most common kind of research on sex work and the experiences of sex workers. Beyond general sociology, scholars look specifically at the effects of gender, race, class, immigration status, disability, poverty, and more on sex work and workers. They seek to understand what sex work is, how it works in the world, and what effect it has on people involved. Roberts-Smith addresses commonalities among different kinds of workers, particularly those who do what is considered private as performance. Using interviews with actors, activists, clergy, and sex workers, he showed that there are common experiences among people who share some part of themselves with an audience as paid work, regardless of the content of that sharing. Ralston, the author of Slut-Shaming, Whorephobia, and the Unfinished Sexual Revolution, is deeply involved in the scholarship of sexual freedom and autonomy. A 2023 article on the website The Conversation by Ralston addresses Canada's legal frameworks and social issues, providing links to additional research, dismantling objections to the decriminalization of sex work, and provides a strong section on the value of sex work. The Conversation is a website whose motto is, quote, academic rigor, journalistic flair, end quote. They're a great resource for scholarly yet readable material of all kinds. They have a large collection of articles on sex work by researchers, including many that explicitly acknowledge sex work as work and support the need for decriminalization. For the purposes of this discussion, we can define labor as the physical, mental, and emotional effort of people exchanged for money. We talk about this as work too. Many labor researchers and advocates name the ways in which all people choose to work for a variety of reasons, whether along the spectrum of the need for money to interest in the enjoyment of the work itself. There are regulatory and economic systems that affect labor of all kinds. Sex work is subject to a wide variety of such systems, all in play around the world. There are 5 categories of regulatory systems that have economic and social effects on sex workers and their clients: decriminalization, legalization, abolition, neo-abolition in the Nordic model, and prohibition. Many of us know what these systems are, but helping people outside the sex trades understand the differences among them and what good and harm they do can help increase advocacy by potential allies. What happens in each system can be examined by understanding the countries that use each of them. The practicalities of these systems and the way they benefit people or harm them can be a persuasive argument for people to join in advocacy. Using these tools and ideas, we have to choose what strategy might work with a particular person. Here are 3 things to consider as you make that choice. Connect person to person. What is your relationship to the person, and what things do you have in common? What bridges can you build between you? Appeal to their moral center. What do they care about most deeply? How do they understand right and wrong? What are their ethical, social, political commitments? Appeal to their curiosity. What do they like to learn or discuss? What draws their interest and why? What makes them ask more and deeper questions? These questions can help you identify the right on-ramp, the right point of entry for the people you hope will become allies in your advocacy. May your organizing be powerful.
That was wonderful, Jesse. Next is Elle Tong, the founder of 4L Solutions. championing human rights, mental health, and sexual freedom. She is a world-renowned 22-plus year international educator, HIV plus survivor leader, pleasure activator, and fun facilitator on a mission to eradicate sexual stigma worldwide, turning her lived experiences, advocacy work, and intersectional research into powerful catalysts for change.
Hello and welcome to my class for Spokes Hub Graduation 2025. Solidarity as Strength, Eradicating HIV Stigma Through Language, Policy, and Collective Action. Join me in taking a warm breath of gratitude for the land we live on and all our ancestors that came before us. Feel the love flowing like lava beneath your feet, connecting all people and living things, filling Mother Earth and each and every one of us with joy, peace, and harmony. My name is Tang Wen, Elle. You can call me Elle. I am half Chinese, French, and Cherokee Indian, born in San Francisco, raised in Beijing, China, a survivor of trafficking from college in Canada, and Love Queen Layla is my chosen empowered name. I'm the founder of 4L Solutions, championing human rights, mental health, and sexual freedom. I actually taught ESL and Mandarin for over 20 years, becoming a now former pro-dom, current sex researcher, and holistic certified sexuality educator. Living at the intersection of stigma as an HIV-positive sex worker, survivor leader, and pleasure professional, my own health, attending mental health first aid training, my work with the Asian collective Red Canary Song, Decrim NY Coalition, and Partners for Justice with CIHLP, Center for HIV Law and Policy, are what ignited my mission and why I'm here today bringing you solutions, not statistics. Are you ready to journey with me? All right, so before I begin, I'm going to show you 3 images, and I'd like to invite you to notice what you're feeling, if you're feeling anything in your body, your thoughts, your mind. Jot it down. You can email it to me if you like. We're going to take one big collective breath on each, inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. Slide. Slide. We all know what we resist persists. So think about it now. What are you holding on to that's getting smellier by the minute? What's that pile of stinky fish on a global scale? Slide. It's time to look in the mirror. Slide. We're living in a silent epidemic, taught to fear pleasure, not embrace health. The anatomy of stigma is cyclical. Slide, please. Do you see the play of words on the screen? Internal shame, I'm dirty, doubles depression risk. External cruelty, out of 195 countries, can you take a guess how many still are criminalizing HIV status? Prepare to be appalled. Systemic barriers, no sex ed, no PrEP, no access to care or resources. Slide. Let this sink in for a moment. This is the stinky fish worldwide. Realize that stigma isn't a side effect. It's the engine of the epidemic. You know what? I found out I had HIV just before my one-way plane ticket here in July 2013. And believe me, I've gone through all of those cycles. And that's why I'm here today. Next. As a language teacher, I know that words build worlds, but stigma, it's society's bad grammar. Stigma taught me shame. BDSM taught me safety, boundaries, and consent. Pleasure taught me power. One truth, language can cage or liberate. Language is lifeline. Slide. We've made significant changes in health and medicine research, yet the way we speak about sexual health has yet to change. So I connected all these dots through my own research, through grassroots organizing, and also CBPR with Complex Rights and Wrongs. And while sex ed at ISEE taught me the most important community agreement I've ever learned. Repeat after me. Don't yuck my yum. So I urge you to remove these outdated terminal segregating terms from your own vocabularies, government CDC websites, and policies. Evolve language, laws, and humankind by choosing consciously empowering terminology. And I want to really take note and talk to you about STCs here. I learned this term at DomCon LA 2022, a night before I was teaching my class, Healing STIs. A person came up to me and said, hey, you know what? I heard this on a podcast and I thought it might help you. I really can't remember which one. I wish it did so I can give credit. But anyway, you know how in BDSM, we talk about medical conditions and stuff for safety. So the podcast host, he said, hey, I'm just going to go off this list, okay? Do you have any medical conditions? How about any sexually transmitted conditions? Wow, just rolled off the tongue. Making that one change changed my life. Slide. I'm here on behalf of all the people like me, as your sister, your neighbor, your family, your friend, working and living with treatable medical conditions. I'm not a person suffering from a disease or dirty for my choice of profession, as society has labeled me, mislabeled me, and made you to believe. It all starts with the way we speak to ourselves here. Compassionate communication starts with you. In Ghana, words shifted, stigma incinerated. In Chinese, 团结 means solidarity, literally binding together. That's our task. Slide. So I ask you, when will you taste freedom on your tongue? Slide. Policy is syntax for society. And right now, we're writing laws that erase people. Slide. Attaining the United Nations Sustainable and Developmental Goals means listening to sex worker and survivor-led solutions for anti-trafficking reform, understanding the conflation of and difference between coercion and consent, recognizing the intersectionality with HIV, stigma, sex ed, and promoting pleasure right now for global health and happiness. U equals U means undetectable equals untransmutable. Botswana has already decriminalized HIV. Treatment seekers surged. Science freed me. Now it's time to free each other. The research-backed evidence from Human Rights Watch, UNAIDS, WHO is already clear. Stop the hypocrisy, already stagnating 10 years to actually do something about these human rights violations. The path forward is to advocate for and immediately act on our recommendations for the full decriminalization of sex work and HIV simultaneously. Slide. Facing today's scale of challenges, how do we move forward while staying rooted, resilient, and in right relationship with one another? In the words of the Human Rights Advocacy Center, ICAAD, justice is what love looks like in public. So let's get to those solutions. Instead of using tissues, champion this because it's an everybody issue. Here are some solutions. It's time to audit language, demand policy reform, demand policy reform, amplify community voices, and fund conscious, fun, and pleasure-inclusive health education, not fear. This is ESL for society. We're all teachers. Alone, we hide. Together, we rise to end this silent epidemic. Enjoy solidarity like oxygen. Breathe it in and shout hooray for universal alignment, uplifting our human paradigm. Solidarity isn't charity. It's mutual liberation. It's up to us to shed the skin of shame and stand united for people and planet. Join me in reading the Solidarity Oath mantra. Stigma is death. Pleasure is breath. Language is spell. Solidarity is strength. 让我们手拉手，一起走向自由, which means let us walk hand in hand together towards freedom. This is a surprise gift for you, the pleasure poem by me. I believe global catalytic transformation commences by activating pleasure within. So let's go. In Chinese, how we cheer people on, we say 加油, Jiayou, 加油, add gas, 加油. Empower yourself, transform the world. 谢谢. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elle. Our next graduate is Myrtle Foss. Myrtle is a 24-year-old queer disabled advocate and activist. Their organization history includes being their high school's GSA president, moderation for Reddit communities such as R Trans and R LGBTQ, and creation of a Discord server for trans and non-binary individuals in their hometown. Currently, they're pursuing a career as an erotic professional and expanding their networks in the hopes of bringing their advocacy projects and career path forward together.
Being a multiply marginalized intersectional minority in the adult industry comes with a lot of discomfort. Due to societal stigma, being an adult professional in general comes with the risk of harassment, but especially for those who are minorities. My project focuses on camming, where the creator broadcasts themselves live and fans with an account can send messages in their chat room. This video was recorded in the same layout as my live streams, and every single message you see in it was an actual message sent to me in my chat room or DM during one of my streams. And each time, a part of me or my identity was attacked, insulted, or dismissed. I created this project to show that ignorance and carelessness is damaging, and words on a screen have an impact on the creator reading them.
Hey guys, welcome to stream. Happy Tuesday. Hope you all are having a great day. That information is actually in my bio. If you want to search a little bit more. No, I cannot. If you'd read the rules, you would know why I cannot. No, I will not do that. My rules explicitly state that's against the rules to ask me to stand up. You didn't know? It's listed 3 separate times in my bio and in the chat rooms, with the bots. No, I'm trans. What do you mean, why? Yes, I am. What type of fucking question is that? First of all, it like says it like in my bio, but like second of all, who the fuck asks that? Your preferences are transphobic. No. It is simply you being a bigot. Get the fuck out of my room. Hi. I'm not a girl, first of all, but I mean, I do have dildos. I just told you I'm not a girl. I'm non-binary. Those are two separate things. And I'm a switch. You know what? I'm not even going to answer that. Why the fuck are you asking that question? First of all, it's not allowed on Chatterbait to ask that question, but like, what the fuck? That is super fucking sexist. Get out of my room. Thank you, but please keep all dirty talk and tip notes. It's part of the rules. Like I said, questions, dirty talk, all need to be in tip notes. Okay, that just happened. Alright. Alright, anyway, let's get back to work. Oh boy, hey guys, I'm gonna like write an email real quick. Oh my god. Okay. That was just sent to me. No, I will not repeat it. Don't ask me.
Thank you so much, Myrtle. Up next, we have Alex Andrews. Alex Andrews is a sex worker with lived experience under criminalization of consensual sex work. She is the co founder of Swap Behind Bars and works with those who have been incarcerated and also have experience in the sex industry to reduce the shame, discrimination, and stigma. Alex has been called a watchdog of anti trafficking activity and is committed to the unification of sex worker rights in the United States.
Grief is a heavy burden, and in modern society, we are often expected to carry it alone. Though it is a universal human experience, grief remains deeply personal and, too often, quietly endured. We may receive sympathy or support in the immediate aftermath, but the long-term emotional work of grief is frequently left to us alone. This isolation is compounded by societal norms that discourage emotional vulnerability, urging us to be strong, to move on, or to get back to work. As a result, many people suppress their pain, ashamed that they still feel broken weeks, months, or even years later. In Western cultures especially, death is sanitized and grief is treated as something to manage quickly and quietly. Funerals are short. Bereavement leave is limited. Conversations around loss are awkward or avoided entirely. This cultural detachment may be convenient for institutions, but it leaves individuals adrift. struggling to make sense of their pain without the communal rituals, long-term support, or language they need to heal. Across the world, grief is expressed in ways that reflect each society's values and spiritual beliefs. In Christianity, funerals and prayers center on remembrance and the promise of eternal life. Islam emphasizes quick burial, communal prayer, and submission to God's will. Judaism guides mourners through structured stages like Shiva and Yahrzeit. Hinduism and Buddhism view death as part of a spiritual journey, marked by purification rituals, chanting, and merit making. Indigenous traditions across the globe honor the dead through ancestor veneration and transformation rituals. These practices offer community, continuity, and meaning, reminding us that grief isn't meant to be carried alone. Collective grief, felt after natural disasters, mass violence, or the death of a beloved leader, reminds us how powerful communal mourning can be. In movement spaces, we often grieve as a community for comrades lost to overdose, incarceration, state violence, or systemic neglect. Our own community has been memorializing our community losses since 2003 on December 17th, International Day to End Violence Against Sex Workers, and November 19th for Trans Day of Remembrance. This shared grief can validate our emotions, foster belonging, and help us carry the weight together. When we grieve in community, we create space not only for mourning, but for remembering, rebuilding, and healing. But what we talk about far less is the raw personal grief, the kind that guts you, the kind that comes when you lose a partner, a parent, or even a beloved pet. In movement work especially, where the demand to keep going is constant, this type of loss can feel like a private wound in a very public war. Losing a partner is a soul-shattering grief. In fact, losing a partner is one of the most profound, destabilizing griefs we can endure. It's not just the loss of a person, it's the loss of daily rituals, of shared dreams, of the one who saw you at your most raw and held you anyway. The absence is physical, emotional, spiritual. It shows up as a fog, a rage, a silence. You forget how to eat, how to sleep, how to care. It's not just heartbreak, it's heartbreak in the middle of a meeting. It's breaking down in the middle of a budget call. In our work, the loss of a partner often goes unseen. Maybe they weren't legally recognized. Maybe your grief isn't named because your love wasn't institutionally valid, but the grief is still real. And the pressure to return to productivity in the face of it is not only unfair, it's dehumanizing. Losing a parent can feel like losing your anchor. It can unravel your sense of safety, history, or identity, no matter how old you are. Grieving a beloved pet is often minimized by others, but for many of us, pets are emotional companions, lifelines, even family. Their absence can create a silence that's just as sharp. And in our communities, grieving a client who crossed into intimacy, who became family, is its own unique heartbreak, often invisible to systems that don't recognize the full humanity of sex workers and their bonds. It's not just in your head. Grief is a neurobiological event. It rewires the brain and hits every system in the body. Your amygdala becomes hyperactive, triggering panic and fear. Your prefrontal cortex, the decision-making center, slows down, making it hard to concentrate. You experience grief fog. Hormones spike and crash. Cortisol rises, oxytocin plummets, and your immune system weakens. Some people develop physical symptoms, even broken heart syndrome. This isn't weakness, it's survival. It's your body saying something huge just happened. Grief in sex worker communities shows up everywhere, in harm reduction kits, jailhouse letters, missing persons flyers, overdose vigils. But our personal grief, the loss of a partner, a chosen family member, a version of ourselves, is often hidden beneath the urgency of the work. We forget appointments, we overwork, we cry between emails, We show up when we shouldn't have to. We need space to not be okay. You don't have to earn rest. You are allowed to grieve. You are allowed to stop. You are allowed to miss them. Grief isn't a flaw in your leadership. It's a reflection of your love and your humanity. So how do we make room for this humanity in our organizing spaces? We start with intention. Begin meetings with a grief check-in, not just project updates. Create anonymous spaces to name who we miss. Normalize bereavement leave for chosen family, for clients, for whoever you define as a loss. Build rituals, candles, zines, memorial boards, altars. Let grief be seen. To every grieving advocate, we see you. You don't have to wrap your grief in activist language. You don't have to learn from it. You don't have to justify it. You're allowed to just hurt, to just miss them, to fall apart. Grieving a partner is not a detour from the work. It is the work. If we are building a world where sex workers, survivors, and criminalized people are treated with dignity, that has to include how we mourn, not just collectively, but personally. We don't owe the world our productivity in the face of loss. What we owe ourselves and each other is tenderness. We remember those we've lost not just in memorials, but in every moment we choose to stay soft. In every breath we give ourselves grace. In every time we ask someone else to carry the load while we rest. That's what love looks like. That's what grief teaches us. And that's how we stay human, even when the movement forgets to. If we are building a world that honors sex workers, survivors, and criminalized people, we must make room for mourning, not just for community-wide tragedy, but for intimate, soul-shaking personal loss.
Thank you, Alex. Our next graduate is Chuck Frickin' Batts, a queer, non-binary, and disabled sex worker. After starting sex work in 2010, they quickly got involved in advocacy for their newfound community. In Chuck's downtime, they stress about their plants and clean their house while obsessively listening to Sleep Token. To them, Halloween is more than just a holiday, it's a lifestyle.
This project is following my journey of working in a brothel once for 1 week and once for 2 weeks. As we pulled out of my driveway and started our 12-hour journey from Seattle to a brothel in Nevada, the perfect opportunity presented itself to blast Hoes in Different Area Codes by Ludacris. If you don't bring condoms or toilet paper, or you run out while you're there, you can buy them from the house for a fee per condom or roll of TP. I packed my own, then gave it away to everybody. Condoms and toilet paper for the people. Everyone called it the Pussy Prison. There is no privacy. The whole building is monitored by cameras and the windows are barred. We were charged $35 daily for our room unless we earned $1,000 in 24 hours. They had the gall to call that free rent. Since half of the $1,000 goes to the house, the free rent was really just a $35 kickback for making them $500. Wells, Bellas, my hell, so swell. It's tradition to offer money to this doll to keep the money flowing. Once when we went over 24 hours with no customers, the most senior worker had everybody go outside, pee in front of the building, and throw several pennies behind us. It seemed to work, and now I can say that I've peed outside of a brothel. Historically, in a brothel, cribs were tiny, bare-bones rooms where a prostitute interacted with clients. It is no different at Bella's. I had a queen bed, sink, and dresser, my home for 2 weeks. Once, in the wee hours of the morning, I silently padded my way into the dimly lit bar where the music never stopped playing. Hotel California by the Eagles was playing. How apropos. The testing standards for brothels are invasive and whorephobic. Workers are subjected to invasive cervical swabs and blood draws. Gonorrhea and chlamydia tests happen once every week, and syphilis and HIV are tested once a month. It was easy to spot the other brothel workers shopping at the town Walmart post-testing. A silent camaraderie, we all had medical wraps around the crooks of our elbows. After passing the medical exam, you go to the sheriff for your work card. Your picture and fingerprints are taken, and you become legally registered as a prostitute in some database because you got paid to suck dick. Everyone was required to complete 4 15-minute shifts a day using CB radio to entice truckers to visit. If we are late or missed our radio shift, the house fined us. Bella's has complimentary showers available to customers who book a party with one of our beauties. Essential wash is included with all parties. If your truck has GPS tracking, Bella's has complimentary and discreet shuttle service available 24 hours a day when you book a party with one of our beautiful ladies. Please call 775-752-9914 and we will pick you up anywhere in the Wells, Nevada city limits. On the right is a view into the bar from where we would be paraded out for customers to pick us out, like dogs at the pound. There were also cheapskate looky-loos who didn't come in to book a party, drinking while they enjoyed a free flirting and an unearned view of our scantily clad bodies. We loathed them. Bella, the owner, said that her brothel was known for being cheap, but I had my own bottom line and had no issue turning down cheap asses. Management hated it for me, and Bella would try to convince me not to turn down any dates. After finishing negotiations, I would walk up to the front to pass off the customer's money. I had to pass under a camera's blind spot, and under there, I would shove extra cash into the top of my corset. Many sympathetic clients were outraged their money didn't all go to me, and they'd get in on the money sneaking train. And in this image, you can see what the client paid, what I was paid, and then what I took extra off the top for myself that was considered theft. That's $690. Sleep deprivation and cold meals were the norm. I lived, ate, and slept in lingerie. At 4 a.m., our shifts were supposed to be over. Management strongly encouraged us to make every lineup regardless, so I worked 24/7. Prolonged sleep deprivation can cause significant and lasting psychological damage. My husband said I returned from Bella's a different person, forever changed. It's been 7 years, and I still have nightmares of being trapped in Bella's hallways. While I was working, wildfires came dangerously close to the house. Despite our risk, we were thinking about the potential money we could make.
That fire's still going on?
Oh, yeah. 93 and 229 are still closed.
Is it mountain?
I don't know where it's at. It's close, though. They said it's less than 10 miles away.
They could reach out.
Yeah, so 93, which is the highway that's right out here, is closed from Wells to Lagos, which I don't know where that's at, but it's north of here. So a bunch of truckers are going to be stuck here for the night. So that's why we're hitting the CB hard. A deaf customer came in for a visit. I barely remembered enough ASL to introduce myself during the lineup, and he selected me. We went back to my room to negotiate via paper. We had a good time, and after he left, I heard other workers making fun of him. Sex work should be accessible to all. Once the lineup bell, you only had a couple of minutes to get to the curtain. We could be seen running into the lineup room with one stiletto on and the other in our hand. And that's the lineup bell. I love a little mischief, so I packed googly eyes and strong glue. When I could, I would put a pair up, crossing my fingers that it would dry before somebody else noticed. Management was completely puzzled when they started to appear. Viva la chaos. Despite enduring much hell, there are many moments of joy, silliness, and camaraderie with everyone else working. This is taken on 4th of July, where we were lighting off Roman candles in the parking lot. There were moments of beauty in the hellscape of the Pussy Prison. During my first trip to the brothel with a former friend, we had to leave early, fearing we would be victims of a hate crime. After being threatened with violence by a homophobe, my travel partner and I broke our contracts to leave early, and we were fined. As we pulled out, I blasted all the things she said by tattoo, while my travel buddy sobbed into the can of SpaghettiOs they were eating with their hands. My low gas light came on while I was driving on a state route with no traffic, no cell signal, and no gas station in sight. I had forgotten to fill up in wells, and the miles in the tank decreased to 0. Terrified that we might end up stranded, the car continued to run despite the fact. Adrenaline was coursing through me as the car continued on and on. Eventually, when we were 10 miles past the empty tank, a gas station appeared, and we were saved. I returned to Bella's a second time on my own, lured with promises that the person who threatened me wouldn't be there. However, Bella invited her back halfway through my visit. Another worker from Seattle that I knew was a trans man playing a woman and was aware of my previous encounter with Nevada. They felt unsafe and paid the fine early to fly home. All in all, my summary of my visits is that brothels are just legal pimping.
Thank you, Chuck. Monique Starr, whose pronouns are they, them, theirs, is a sensual artist, journalist, writer, media educator, and sex worker advocate whose work lies at the intersections of sex, kink, media, pop culture, pleasure, and radical justice for fat Black femmes. Monique is a core member of the BIPOC sex worker writer space, whose goal is to empower the communities they serve through inclusive media making and encourage fellow fat Black sex workers to use their voice.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Sex Work and Sex Media. My name is Monique Starr, and I'm a writer, journalist, content creator, adult content creator, and media educator. This topic is very important to me because a lot of people tend to forget that sex workers are also a marginalized identity, but also people tend to forget to consider how sex work and sex media are interconnected and how a culture of anti-sex worker sentiment and whorephobia play a part in how we are depicted. So just a bit of trigger warnings. So there's mentions of sex work, whorephobia, sexual violence, strong language, anti-Blackness, nudity, and pornography. And so we already know what the nature of our work is. I would like to talk about how whorephobia manifests while doing that work, especially as it pertains to a media context and media representation of sex workers. So first and foremost, one of the things that whorephobia does is that it reinforces harmful tropes. So what are some harmful tropes that pertain to sex workers? For example, one is the disposable sex worker, or the sex worker is someone who's vulnerable, that only does street-based work, and they're always constantly being dehumanized within doing that work. What goes hand in hand with that is also this idea that sex work equals dirty work, which even more so breeds the sentiment of sex workers being seen as inherently dirty or shameful, or it is work that shouldn't be done because because of the nature of the work that we do, based on how folks view it from a religiously conservative perspective. What else happens to our representation because of whorephobia? Another issue is the suppression of sex work and censorship. What happens oftentimes on social media platforms is that we are often censored, whether it be sex workers, sex educators, and also sex tech accounts, as we are all interconnected as well. And where this often takes place is platforms like Instagram. Instagram is notorious for not only blocking sex worker accounts, but also disabling them, permanently shadow banning them, and things of that nature. This also leads to public shaming through flagging content and profiles, which is also a form of censorship, but then it does get increasingly more uncomfortable and increasingly more oppressive when we add in the fact that there's troll behavior that comes into that. There's also the fact that even within these trolling behaviors, we are not often able to be protected by the platforms that we are utilizing, simply because they have vague content guidelines, and also they don't care about sex workers. In alignment with that, also removing compensatory options for content creators who make adult-based content, and also the continuous downplaying and limiting of bringing awareness to the harm that we face, especially those who are Black trans women. I want to make it very clear that even though sex workers are a marginalized group, oftentimes we have to look at these things intersectionally, and because of that, those who are further marginalized and sex workers tend to bear the brunt of whorephobia and its extensions, because white supremacy it oppresses intersectionally. So, what is it like to navigate these spaces as sex-based content creators, especially digital spaces? So, just like influencers, we have to deal with a lot of parasocial relationships. So what are parasocial relationships? Parasocial relationships are mostly one-sided, where a viewer or an audience member is consuming content, and because they find a affinity for your likeness, or the content really resonates with them, they feel that there's a relationship or a bond being built between the content creator and the audience member, solely on the basis of the content that they're consuming and the ways that they're perceiving you through said content. A lot of times, folks, because of parasocial relationships, although parasocial relationships are not inherently harmful, in this particular instance, they can be, because a lot of times they cross boundaries. So the crossing of boundaries includes clients wanting to ask personal questions, clients messaging you when they're not allowed to. Also, on the other hand, parasocial relationships can function in a way where you do need to utilize that to your advantage, or you can utilize it to your advantage by converting your fans into customers. So yes, it does help to have that level of a connection, but it's not devoid of harm. I want to make that very clear. Also, when it comes to censorship, or I should say avoiding the censorship, a lot of times we have to use intentional misspelling or omission of certain words in order to make sure that our content is still visible. So for example, instead of spelling sex, S-E-X, we know that the telltale or the age-old ways that we have to spell, like sex, S-E-K-S, or S-E-G-G-S, so on and so forth, just to avoid triggering content warnings and censorship on the various platforms that we're on. Also, when we think about navigating as sex workers, especially those of us who tend to be fat, Black, darker skin, so on and so forth, we may not want to use certain terms like ebony or BBW because they're inherently fetishistic, and they inherently fetishize certain bodies. We still have to use those in order to be visible. So a lot of times we have to walk a thin line of, I don't necessarily want to use this, yet at the same time, I also need to make money. So these are the terms that I have to use and think about how that impacts me while simultaneously having to play the game of capitalism. So we talked about how sex work, oftentimes because of whorephobia, tends to be deemed as not okay. But when is it, quote unquote, okay to sell sex? Let's talk about whorephobia and this curatorial approach called the hoe or whore aesthetic, and how that has appropriated sex worker culture and sex worker aesthetic. So we have to talk about, like, yes, whorephobia functions as an oppressor, but it also functions to appropriate the things that are being oppressed. So with this appropriation comes the whore-ho culture / aesthetic, which includes demonizing the actual whore-ho sex worker themselves, especially those who are further marginalized, by simultaneously taking how we look, how we behave, or the perceptions of such, and using it as a way to make things more palatable for a white male gaze. So what are some examples of this? Some examples are some of your favorite rappers who benefit from selling sex, but they constantly use their platforms to shun and shame sex work. An example of this is Cardi B. Cardi B used to be a former sex worker. She was a stripper. However, in one of the songs, and I put the quote over there, she says, "I said dance, not fuck. Don't get it confused." This not only shows that she is okay with the work that she's done as a dancer, which she should have been okay with, but even so, just because you don't have sex does not make you less of a sex worker. Again, sex work is not just about physical acts, it's about the selling of sex and desire work, and even kink work, depending on the work that you're doing. So this also shows that the whorephobia aspect of it all is that it really plays into the hierarchy, this idea that, oh, I'm a stripper and I'm better than that, but I can still maintain a sex worker look to make money and to benefit my platforms. Also, let's talk about how certain magazines that are derived, or the premise is derived from trying to encourage pleasure amongst their audiences, like Sports Illustrated and Playboy. We should talk about how they maintain a mostly white cishet male target audience by featuring women that are thin, lighter skinned, and fit Eurocentric beauty standards. So also this idea that sex is only palatable if you're thin, if you're white, if you're conventionally attractive, and that these specific audiences get to have access to that because that is something that they uphold as a standard, and that anything else is not necessarily a proper standard and should be demonized. Also, on the flip and on a more personal side, we should talk about how men in particular on dating apps constantly say that they want women and gender expansive folk that are fun, that like no strings attached relationships, that are freaks and kinky. But yet at the same time, they constantly disregard their consent. They are often grossly and openly whorephobic towards folks who display certain behaviors or display certain personality traits that seem to be more deemed as less palatable. And they often constantly slut shame people who exhibit the qualities that they're seeking. So it's very weird when you're asking for a specific type of person, but then when you receive the person, you're being whorephobic towards them and you're slut shaming them. And then lastly, the transphobia that connects to this is that we're shunning trans women, in particular Black trans women, but we are still getting BBLs, implants, and other facial feminization surgery, things that also are deeply rooted in the ho aesthetic and have been taken from Black trans sex workers in particular, but folks are still demonizing those who are trying to do it for gender affirmation purposes and treating it as it being a problem, but it's okay for cis folk to do it because you're trying to maintain affinity for and alignment with a specific beauty standard. So one thing I want to note before we get into this last slide, sex work is only palatable if it fits the white male gaze and if it fits a Eurocentric beauty standard, which means anybody who's further marginalized is going to be further demonized and further oppressed because they do not meet those standards. So lastly, I want to talk about how sex workers are depicted in media, and using a specific example. The example I've chosen is Zola. Zola is a movie by Janixa Bravo. It is based on a true story of Zola. For those of y'all that are unfamiliar with Zola, Zola was a former sex worker who shared her experience on Twitter. This is why Twitter has been revolutionized by her story, because she is the reason why they have threads to begin with, where you can send one tweet after another, but it stays in a thread and not necessarily as separate tweets. Also, what makes this story very compelling is that it's told by a Black woman, and it's about a Black woman lead and her experiences. And while the story is gut-wrenching, even from when we read it on Twitter, it also depicts sex workers in a different way, where it highlights the intricacies of being a Black sex worker, a Black woman sex worker. It also highlights the intricacies of what it looks like to be a Black sex worker versus a white sex worker. On the left side of this picture is Stephanie. Stephanie is one of the main, I would say, antagonists of the story. And basically, Stephanie provides Zola an opportunity to go to Florida to dance. And while doing that, Stephanie's pimp is there and he's telling her that she needs to get some clients. So Zola helps her with Backpage because Stephanie was getting clients by word of mouth. But Zola was like, you can actually improve your workflow by utilizing Backpage. So this also is a great depiction of sex work because it also talks about Backpage before Sesta Foster, before it became removed. So in the midst of Zola helping literally everyone in this, she is the first one and the only one to save everybody, but is receiving the most harm. And then at the end, they talk about how Stephanie goes on Reddit and tries to paint Zola as a bad person and tries to make it seem like Zola had harmed her, even though Stephanie was using a lot of AAVE and appropriating a lot of Black culture and aesthetic throughout the whole film, and B, she code switched and turned into a Karen when it was time for her to sing her swan song about, oh, woe is me, this happened to me, when in fact that was not necessarily the case. I also want to make it clear that I like this depiction of sex workers in media because although I am not for only sharing the hard part of our stories, I will say that this is beautifully done. It's not necessarily trauma porn, especially since it's based on a true story. I also appreciate that Janixa had consulted with Zola throughout the whole film so that she was trying to do the most accurate depiction that does justice to both the story and the personage behind the story. And I also just wanted to note that I really appreciate that we talk about the intricacies of the intersectional oppressions and nuances that come with sex work, especially as it pertains to the experience of a Black sex worker's experience in comparison to a white sex worker's experience, because we don't necessarily hold that often. So in short, I just wanted to say that sex work and sex media, although they have made some strides, there's still more that we can do, especially when it comes to broadening our sex worker dialogues, broadening our stories, and also making them more authentic, nuanced, and intersectional. Thank you so much.
That was incredible, Monique. Our next graduate is Letitia Coleman. Letitia is founder of Survivors for Systems Change, a nationally recognized leader in survivor engagement and leadership. She provides facilitation for communities of practice, survivor leadership initiatives, webinars, trainings, and consulting services to government agencies, funders, nonprofits, and other stakeholders across Minnesota and nationwide.
Well, Letitia, thank you so much for being here today and standing in the gap between two populations that are often pitted against each other in advocacy spaces, which are survivors of exploitation and consensual sex workers. So how do you find yourself in this unique position?
First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the harm done to sex workers by the survivor leader community and the government agencies, institutions, and community organizations we have aligned ourselves with, as this topic is a topic that we will revisit throughout the conversation today. But I find myself in this unique position as the circumstances in my life have brought a lot of intersectionality. I am now a sex worker, but I have been a survivor of sexual exploitation amongst other types of exploitation all of my life. So I'm in this very gray area where I don't fit into either category perfectly, but want to continue to advocate for both and bridge the divide between the sex workers and survivor communities. That's really important to me.
And we need it. We definitely need it. So thank you for that work. The next question I have for you is, what are some of the things that survivors can work on to be more welcoming to sex workers in their spaces?
Some things that survivors can do to make spaces more welcoming of sex workers is to use more inclusive language, not tell people what categories they belong into, not assume that people have not been survivors but are now sex workers. People can listen to learn instead of listening to respond. People can be kind. Um, Survivors cannot rally behind institutions that have no lived experience and no partnership with lived experience folks who do not understand the complexity that comes with being a survivor, let alone a sex worker, right? Survivors can focus on the things they have in common with sex workers rather than the small amount of things that they have that are different. Survivors can stop treating everything as a business or a competition or as if it's black and white. When people with lived experience know it's really gray and complex and bring humanity back into the work that we are doing. Survivors can communicate. I know it's hard to communicate, but having those very hard conversations, sitting down with someone, getting understandings, things like that, learn and not disregard the sex work community or disregard the fact that people can be involved in sex work and not consider themselves victims of anything.
So you said two things there that I would just love to follow up on. You said gray and complex. That gray area is so powerful. As a sex worker and survivor myself, I feel like they want to just put us on this binary scale. You're either a sex worker or you're a survivor. They don't want us to have any gray area, any complexity there. I love that you mentioned that. It's a really powerful thing. Do you want to expound upon that, or does it speak for itself? It's just a gray area.
I think that when I say gray area and complexity, I mean that survivors have often done sex work with no third party involved, right? And sex workers have also done things in the sex work world that would look like, they're just surviving. But both in their lived experience has come across one or the other in some way or form. And we don't have to label ourselves, because who's to say who's a sex worker and who's to say who's a survivor? It's like when institutions, am I only a victim when I'm younger than 18 and then I'm a sex worker, but I still identify as a survivor? Am I only a sex worker when I'm an adult and everything is going well for me and I'm advocating and I'm strong and I like to go to work every day? No, I cannot like to do sex work some days and still be okay with my job, right? So yeah, I think a lot of it is trying to put us in boxes that we don't fit in.
So powerful. I love what you have to say about that, especially you also said something about stop treating everything as a business and a competition. Ooh.
Yes.
That's a powerful one, right? Because these services are so limited. And I've heard you say this before, regardless of what these labels are, we all need the services.
We all need the same help. We're all asking for the same things. Sex workers and survivors both need to be protected. Both need to be able to call the police. Both need to be able to get housing services, mental health services, substance abuse services, because the intersectionalities of it all, right? Like you can be a happy sex worker, but still have things in the background in your life that needs to be addressed.
Powerful. Thank you for answering those follow-up stuff. You always just like drop these knowledge bombs, and I'm like, we only have a few minutes on each, but I can't wait for you to teach a class at Spokes Hub, and I hope everybody will come to that, because we could spend hours on each one of these questions. The next one I have for you, what are some things that sex workers can work on to be more welcoming of survivors in their spaces?
I think sex workers can also use more inclusive language, right? Language is very important in a lot of these spaces, and being inclusive is very important too, right? They can be considerate that sexual exploitation is a thing, especially for youth in indigenous communities. They can also use assertive communication and be willing to listen and learn rather than just listening to respond. As I know, a lot of pain has come from the survivor community and the organizations that serve them and the ones that we align ourselves with, including government agencies, institutions, community organizations, funders. I know there's a lot of pain there, but if we sit down as people with lived experience and have the conversations, I think we'll find more in common than we have apart. So just be willing to sit down, have a conversation, learn, keep an open mind, and be more inclusive in language.
Absolutely. Listen to learn rather than to respond.
Yeah, both communities can really make a small step forward by being willing to learn and being educated on the history, the present, and where we are fighting for separately. And I think that both may learn that we are heading in the same direction and even the same things.
Powerful. Thank you. How do anti-trafficking efforts and organizations leave out sex workers? Like, what are some of these hypocrisies that you've seen? How do you want to speak to that?
I think how I would speak to that would be like the who, what, the what, and the why. But I could like say definitions and language definitely limit the services that sex workers can get to. Lack of response or services for sex workers, lack of compassion, a lot of burnouts. I feel like it's similar to when we use systems and language and definitions to discriminate against, Black and Brown and LGBTQ communities. We do the same things and use the same strategies against sex workers and the anti-trafficking movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you just meant right there, like, let's get down to that who, the what, where, and why, this divide between sex workers and survivors. Who is doing it? Like, what are they doing it? Why are they doing it, in your opinion?
I believe that the who is the many government agencies, the anti-trafficking agencies, the funders, and the community organizations they fund. And a lot of the laws being passed through definitions and language are also leaving sex workers out and creating a space where they can't get in by just identifying as they do as sex workers, right? I feel like once again it's just like what they did with housing. They use the definition to discriminate against Black, Brown, and LGBTQ communities. For example, in Minnesota, the definition of family was mother, father, siblings. They know in Black, Brown, and LGBTQ communities that family looks different, and the families that don't look like the definitions that are used by the systems are often left out of the services and are not able to use those services. Law, policy, procedure, or whatever are disproportionately affected. Black people, LGBTQ people, brown people are disproportionately affected because they don't qualify for the services, and they don't qualify because the language and the definitions being used.
Yep, absolutely. By design. Design. Absolutely. So I guess that brings into my next question. What is your vision for the future of advocacy for all the people involved in the sex trade, survivors and sex workers?
I would say that survivors and sex workers are complex individuals who cannot be easily categorized. Our diverse life experience, shaped significantly by our intersectionality, are integral to our identities. I proudly identify as a survivor who has become a sex worker, a traumatized child who has transformed into a strong, resilient Black woman, and a co-parent learning to navigate single motherhood. Many of the circumstances in my life were beyond my control, but I empowered myself by taking charge and making choices that gave me back my power. Each of these aspects contributes to the tapestry of my identity. I cannot separate one from the other. Each part is essential to my whole life and my whole self. So I envision that we work together to get the needs of both communities met, as we can do better together than apart. As people with lived experience, we have to stand in solidarity to be the part of the change that we want to see. So I believe that if we um, take away all of the things that are making us not see each other's for who we are, um, and again put more humanity into it and more of the lived experience and thinking about that instead of going with organizations and places and spaces that don't have lived experience and don't know how complex and gray it is, and look at the reality of a lot of our situations, we can work together better and get things done more, get more things done as we go.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Thank you so much for your time, Letitia. Looking forward to your next steps. Hope you teach us a class soon.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me here.
Thank you so much. Our last graduate is Ruthless, a strong mother of four, an author, tarot reader, content creator, nail technician, and streamer. As Ruthless likes to say, beauty is more beautiful when it comes with brains. Always chase wisdom instead of fame. Sincerely, just a girl.
Hi, my name is Ruthless, and I am an advocate and truth speaker. I am a graduate of Spokes Hub, and today I am presenting my final presentation for graduation, and this is my Oracle deck called A Diamond in the Rough. I created this deck based off of my emotions at the time and what I was going through. It was my vision. It was what I was surrounded by at the time when I was creating this deck. I was around a lot of low vibrational filth and trash. And this was my upbringing. This is what I am accustomed to. It is also what I am currently trying to escape because I take it as a negative form of energy. Um, so that was the inspiration of my cover for A Diamond in the Rough. This was also created with the inspiration from my 21-year-old daughter. I got pregnant at the age of 16, so she was part of the inspiration of my Oracle deck and showing me that through everything that I went through, no matter how shameful I felt at times, that I was always a beautiful diamond, a beautiful embodiment of a mother for her. This is my poverty card. This was inspired because when I was younger, I was very tall, into basketball, but my surroundings was very dark. I was very lonely. I didn't have much friends. I grew up with family, but I still felt very alone. Never had no one to talk to. Um, but I did love being outdoors. It gave me a sense of an escape from what I was going through inside. So that's how I came up with this card. As I said, I was just a scrawny, tall, feisty little fighter, but always very quiet, very shy, very timid in nature. I like to think of myself like a lion, so that was my vision for this card. This slide is my wounded warrior card because although I've always felt very strong, like I was a warrior, at times I felt very defeated, which caused me to feel wounded, and I had developed many scars that sometimes makes me feel not the prettiest or not the most, um, I would say, softest. Um, so I tend to feel a lot of timidness, a lot of anxiety, a lot of emotions, and I feel like that's a sign of my me being wounded and feeling like at my weakest, my lowest. This card came to me because I did meet the devil in my time on my journey, and it did come to me. I expected if I was to ever see the devil, if it was ever to be real, I expected it to come in the form of a man. So I always call myself protecting myself from men, but the devil is a trickster energy. So for me, it came in the form of a woman, um, which completely caught me off guard. But the devil to me was a woman um, in my life that came in the form as a friend who I trusted. And that was the devil for me. So that was my inspiration for this card because looks can be deceiving. This card was inspired to me because it's something that I experienced. And as I said, the devil in my life was a woman. And that's the one who I was shown doing mind control on me, something that I saw firsthand. Um, and so this card was inspired to basically, I would say, expose the truth. It's just my reality, and I do feel like mind control it plays a major part in spiritual warfare and a lot of the attacks as far as anxiety, um, heart attacks, and so other. I do feel like it's all connected to certain entities having control of our mind. This card came to me because when I took my Shahada um, a couple years ago, it taught me modesty. It helped to teach me discipline because I didn't have a mother or father figure growing up. So the streets basically raised me, and I felt like I was going down a dangerous path. I felt like um, I wasn't protecting myself as a woman. I was making myself very vulnerable, and I was a mother of young women, and I was making myself very vulnerable to men by the way I was dressing. I feel like I was um, basically exposing myself, which was bringing me a lot of issues, a lot of reasons why I had to fight so much. And I felt like me fighting was going to lead to some type of trouble down the line. So I wanted some form of discipline, and it helped to teach me how to be modest, which is something I truly appreciate because it's something that I pass down to my daughters. May I have the next slide, please? This is resilience. This card is basically because I've always felt no matter what I was going through or no matter what I was around, that I had to keep going. I have children and I can't give up. So no matter the storm, I always wanted to remain who I was. I always wanted to keep my crown on through anything to stay grounded. So this is how I came up with the card resilience. And at the time I was sleeping on the couch. So pushing it together to make it a bed for me and my children. So this is the inspiration of this card. I had to remain resilient through the darkness. I have the next card. This is divine protection. This card came to me because during my darkest moments, I did come into connection with powerful earth angels who I feel like is part of my bloodline, my ancestors, my sister that passed away, my cousins that passed away, my grandfather, my father, my grandmother. They taught me so much. And I just was getting whispers in my ear during the time that I was protected. I just thought two, 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 two. My daughter name is Tutu, so let's go. But yeah, I just always could feel like there was some type of protection around me. I could see them, I can hear them sometimes, so I know that they are there. And they taught me a lot. They are my teachers, my helpers, my inspiration. Divine protection is what helped me come up with this strength card. Is what helped me to realize my strength. I did see myself taming like a lion, which I feel is like the inner me in a sense. But this card came. Strength is a beautiful thing, and it's something that a lot of women should be very, very proud of having because it's the one thing that we embody, and it's one of our most attractive features, I feel like. And of course, we always have a king by our side, no matter we may feel at time. It's always someone there protecting the lion, protecting the lioness. As above, so below, I feel. So that's what helped me come up with this card. I love lions so much. May I have the next card? This is the energy that I feel like I'm in at this moment. Although I am still kind and I always will be a kind and compassionate person, it did open me up to a lot of different energies that did take advantage of me. And so I am ruthless with my energy. I do also resonate with Ruth from the Bible. So that was mainly the inspiration for Ruth. And then ruthless just comes from my energy and how I feel right now with my past. And nothing about my past is going to affect where I'm going today. We're going to stop. We're going to block in any way. And I am ruthless when it comes to protecting my energy and my vision and my dreams and my foundation and my legacy and my soul tribe and my people and Spokes Hub and my family, Lifeboat. We are all one. We are all united. We are all family. And I am very protective over my family. And I wish us nothing but beautiful days ahead. Success, abundance, prosperity, joy, peace, love, happiness, just everything good. I wish us all the best. And that's my slide. And I pray that you all enjoyed. I hope that my story can inspire you in a way, anyway. And thank you for giving me this moment. Thank you to Jess. Thank you to Spokes Hub. Thank you to Jaylee. Yeah, thank you to my children. Y'all are the best. I'm just using this opportunity to spread gratitude and say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Ruthless. Bravo or congrats to all of our graduates today. We are incredibly proud and appreciative of the knowledge you've shared and are looking forward to witnessing your future advocacy and public education. We're also looking forward to offering financial support through the Spokes Hub Awards Pool. Spokes Hub classes are still open to you, and please consider teaching a class with us in the future.
Also, a huge thank you to the iconic teams at the Woodhull Freedom Foundation and LaShaw Sexual Health and Wellness Research Institute for making all of this possible. I'm so thankful to my Spokes Hub co-coordinators, Noah, Jaylee, and Savannah, and the interpreters supporting this graduation. And for those of you watching at home, thanks for joining us and to celebrate these incredible graduates in the Spokes Hub Virtual Peer Learning Academy. Have a wonderful rest of your week and take care.